Sukkah, Perek Hey, Mishnah Hey. Ein poichsin me-esrim vi-achas tekiyos shabamikdash. There were never less than 21 sounds that were blown in the Beis HaMikdash. Ve'ein mosifin, there were never more al arboim u'shmoine, 48. Tekiah, teruah, tekiah, that counts as 3 separate notes. How does that work? Continues the Mishnah. B'chol yom, every day. Hoyu shom esrim va'achas tekiyos b'mikdash. There were always 21 tekiyos, that means sounds, tekiah, teruah, each counts as a separate sound. There were always 21. How do you get the 21? Sholosh lipsichas she'orim. There were 3, that's a tekiah, teruah, tekiah, when they opened up the gates in the morning. Then, the sesha l'somid shel shachar. There were 9 tekiah, teruah, tekiah for the tomid in the morning. Explains the Bartanura, when they did the nisuch hayayin, pouring the wine for the tomid, they would split the shir that Levim was singing into 3 parts, and before each one of those parts, they would blow tekiah, teruah, tekiah. So that gives you 9 tekiyos, 9 sounds for the tomid shel shachar. Then the seisha l'somid shebenu habayim. Similarly, in the afternoon, when there was another tomid brought, they would split the shir, the song that the Levim was singing, into 3, and again tekiah, teruah, tekiah before each part. If there was a musaf, there would be an additional 9. So the 21, which was every day, if there was a musaf, there will be a further 9, because again there would be a shir sung by the Levim while they were doing the pouring the nisuch hayayin, and again split into 3, and at each point there would be 3 tekiah, teruah, tekiah, 3 threes, a 9, a further 9. Erev Shabbos, if it was Erev Shabbos, hoyu mosifin od sheish, there were the further 6 sounds blown. Sholosh lahavtil ha'om mimlocha, 3 to tell people to stop work. The 3, the first one, the first tekiah, that was to stop the people out in the fields, to stop them working. The next, which was the teruah, was for the people who had shops, that they should close their shops, stop work. And the last one, the tekiah, the last of these 3, was that everybody at home should stop doing malacha, and they should also light the neiros for Shabbos. Then, a little bit later, for sholosh lahavtil ben kodesh l'chol, there were 3, another further tekiah, teruah, tekiah, to say that it is now Shabbos, to differentiate between Shabbos and weekday. The Mishnah therefore says, Erev Shabbos shebesoch hachag, on Erev Shabbos in Sukkot, hoyu shom arboim u'shmoine. That's how you had the 48. How did you get 48? Sholosh, and it will now reckon from the beginning of the day. Many of them we've seen before. Sholosh lipsichas she'orim, the opening up of the gates. There were 3, as we mentioned in this Mishnah. But now we refer back to our previous Mishnah, as it was sukkahs, and they were going to collect the yain, the mayim, the water from Mei Shiluach. Sholosh l'shar ho'elyon, the upper gate on the eastern side, before they went down the steps. Sholosh l'shar ho'elyon, there were three, as we mentioned in the previous Mishnah, tekiah, teruah, tekiah, at the top of the upper gate. Then, continues the Mishnah, v'sholosh l'shar hatachton, there were also three at the ground, and from where they would be walking from the ground, now we're on Ezras Noshim, to the gate from which they would depart and go to collect the water. So that's a further three that we mentioned in the previous Mishnah. If you remember, in the previous Mishnah we also mentioned that when they reached the step, it says there, Lamalo Asiris, to the 10th step, they blew again tekiah, teruah, tekiah. This Mishnah doesn't mention that. And the Bartanura explains because this Tana disagrees with the previous Mishnah. Hai Tana Sova, like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, that says that they did not blow on that 10th step. So that's why it's omitted. Continues the Mishnah. V'sholosh limilu hamayim. A further three, and this goes back into the previous perek, where we saw when they came back with the water, and they came to the shar hamayim, the gate of water which was on the southern side of the Mikdash area. Toku v'heriyu toku. So that's a further three notes. V'sholosh al gabe hamizbeach. Again referring to the previous perek, there were three more al gabe hamizbeach. Explains the Bartanura, when they had the arovas and placed them next to the mizbeach, remember they went up, and the top part just came over the top of the mizbeach. When they did that, toku v'heriyu v'toku, and that gives you a further three. Continues the Mishnah, just to conclude this 48. Teisha l'tomid shel shacha. There were 9 of the tomid shel shacha, as we mentioned in this Mishnah. V'seisha l'tomid shel beinu abayim. Another 9 for the tomid in the afternoon. V'seisha l'musofim. And a further 9 notes for the musofim when the Levium was singing the shir. As it was a Friday, sholosh lahavtil esoom min hamlocha, 3 to stop people, to tell people to stop working, as we mentioned. V'sholosh lahavtil ben kodesh l'chol, and 3 to differentiate between Shabbos and weekday. That gives a total of 48. The Bartanura does question this and say it is just possibly on some years, if Erev Pesach fell on Shabbos, then there may have been more than 48. And the Bartanura explains that every time the community, they were bringing all the korbanos Pesach, and they did that in 3 different groups. Each one of those groups, they said Hallel 3 times whilst they were doing the shechita of the korbanos. And at each time they said Hallel, they would be blowing the shofar, tekiah, teruah, tekiah. Now, if one adds all that up, it comes to many more than 48. However, answers the Bartanura, as this was such a rare event that Erev Pesach was going to fall on a Shabbos, therefore that is omitted. That concludes